To be present, we must be intentional, and to bear fruit, we must feed the soul. You're listening to Pause, Sip, and Ponder. Hey Ponders, editing Pauline here. I just want to apologize in advance. So I recorded this solo, and usually I have Mary Rose with me in the background just to check with all the technical and audio stuff. And it just so happens every time that I do this by myself, something has to happen. But I think it's still a good episode regardless. You'll hear that my guest speaker's voice is way more clear than mine, but that's okay. I think he definitely deserves the highlight because he spits out straight up facts and wisdom and things that are very encouraging, insightful, enlightening. So yeah, and then you'll see in the few minutes of him speaking, it's just a picture of him. Again, that was on me, but I promise you, he'll show up eventually in the video if you're watching this through YouTube or on Spotify. So yeah, thank you guys. Bear with me. I appreciate your patience, but I hope you're encouraged through this as much as I was. And yeah, let's ponder together. Hello, Ponders. Welcome back to another episode of Pause, Sip, and Ponder. Thank you so much for being here. If this is your first time, Pause, Sip, and Ponder is a podcast where we talk about everything and anything in the aim to give you some encouragement, some inspiration, learn from one another, grow together. And we truly believe that vulnerability is strength. And in this podcast, we talk about living a purposeful life intentionally and the things that we can do to live fully. So I'm so excited for today's episode. I am accompanied by my guest speaker, Jim Milley. He is the Executive Director of Bridges US, which you've probably heard these past months as I've been speaking more about them on Pause, Sip, and Ponder because I'm so grateful to have connected with them. They're a big reason as to why we're doing more in-person events. I've been able to work alongside Jim, and he's been mentoring me, coaching me, basically equipping me for all of the things that I've been wanting to do ever since I was a kid, from encouraging one another, encouraging the community, empowering the young adults, and just bringing people together and to really empower them and to let them know that they have a great purpose and that we can utilize what God has given us in our local communities. And so he's committed his life to helping leaders multiply and leverage their impact to improve our world within their communities. And he provides a platform for developing leaders such as me throughout the United States. He's a mentor, a friend, and he's truly, truly creating such an impact by just seeing and delegating and just looking at everyone's uniqueness and letting them know that that is something that God can use within what they have, within what they're able to do. So I'm super grateful. Thank you, Jim, for being here on the pod.
Pauline, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Wow. I'm just going to let you, I'd love to just go together everywhere and you could just introduce me. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking earlier how you weren't sure what you would say, but I know you know what to say because this is something that you're passionate about, and that's the same thing with me here on Pause, Sip, and Ponder. When you truly believe in something, when you truly do it from the heart, which is something that I've been through. What you've been doing and how you've been also helping me kind of ignite that fire once again and just serving our community. But yes, for those who don't know you, could you please give a quick introduction of who you are and what Bridges is?
Wow. Well, who I am, I would say, I like what you said about I've committed my life to helping leaders. And I didn't always know that. But when I look back, that's what I saw. Like when I was in high school, I started a group called Teens for Christ. And we met in a teacher's classroom before school, and we were the first interracial group in the town in South Carolina. And
Wow.
I was from New Jersey, but I was the son of a Southern mother and a Southern grandmother from that town. And my family went back like 16 generations in the town. Okay. So I was blood, but I grew up in New Jersey, and here I am back in South Carolina in this town. And everyone knows my family, but of course I'm new and I'm a Northerner. And I was ignorant about what I wasn't supposed to do. And I started a Christian group on the high school campus, and I went to every African-American church in town and spoke and invited everyone to come join us. And we ended up being, so like I've had people contact me from that group from like 38 years ago and say, wow, that was amazing. That what I learned there impacted me in this way. And really, that's when God started speaking to me about a life committed to ministry and a life committed to helping shape leaders. So I've just been at it ever since.
Oh, I love that. Well, I guess you have to mention kind of like your testimony, a lot of what you do is because of, I'm sure, what God has done in your life and how he's transformed your life. So would you mind sharing a little bit more about where it all started?
Wow. I think God works in brokenness. I grew up in a family where my mom wasn't doing very well. My dad wasn't doing very well. And I just had a really high need for affirmation, a really high need for success. And that drove me. So I had this, this ache and pain inside, and I needed to succeed. I actually saved $25,000 by the time I was 16 years old. I started a business when I was 11. That's weird. But it's what I really knew what I was doing too. Like I remember I loved baseball, and I played baseball, and I was looking at the senior league, and I remember I was a pitcher, I was a shortstop. I hit a home run when I was in farm league over the fence, and I sat there looking at the senior leaguers play, and I said, I could play baseball this coming year, or I could start a business and save money for college, because I'd really like to go to college. And I knew my parents were in no position to help me go to college whatsoever. And I actually decided not to play baseball and to start a business at age 11. That's a little weird too. But, so I was forced to grow up really early. But, when you're forced to do that, that's one of the things I love helping, you really care about people in their 20s. And we've had some really interesting conversations, because somehow I'm just wired to think ahead, right? I'm wired to, God's just given me the ability. I have this gift of seeing the future. And that's part of what Bridges is. It's seeing the future of nonprofits in America and church in America, and saying, what do we actually need to do to pivot right now today, so that we're in a good position to love people in the name of Jesus and to just care about people in general, in the next 20, 40, 60 years. So it really starts, whatever brokenness there is in my life, God used it to kind of mold me, that then gives me strengths that end up helping others. So I'm going to encourage people out there, whatever mess you have in your life, like, don't worry about it. Just name it, say it, bring it out in the open. Don't hide it. That's where some of your greatest strengths are going to come from. Of course, it's, you got to have some, I went to plenty of counseling, and I did all, but you got to embrace your brokenness to find your strengths sometimes. So, my parents got divorced, and I moved from New Jersey to South Carolina. Okay. So, people need to understand, in South Carolina, it's a different culture than New Jersey. Okay?
For sure.
And I learned there's a difference between a Yankee and a damned Yankee. A Yankee is a northerner who comes to visit South Carolina. A damned Yankee is one who stays.
Mm.
And I was a damned Yankee. I moved from New Jersey to South Carolina when I was 16 years old. And it was a great experience. I was a terrible cross-cultural worker at the time. I didn't know any bridging skills. I did all the wrong things. I said the wrong things. I was arrogant. I made comparisons. I acted like New Jersey was better.
Mm.
And you know, those people were so gracious in that town. They were kind to me. They put up with me. They helped me learn their ways. They helped me see the value of their culture. They helped me see the values that they hold that I didn't know anything about. Just were really helped me grow up. And, you know, for the sake, because they knew my mom and my grandmother and my grandfather and my great grandfather. And even though, you know, I wasn't acting right, you know, they were merciful and gracious and
Mhm.
taught me how to be a cross-cultural person. And I didn't know it at the time. But do you know 16 is the age where if you change cultures at 16, that is like the best time in your life to change cultures.
Hmm.
You ever heard that?
Why is that?
Yeah, I didn't
No.
hear it until I met a professor from Fuller Seminary in California, Pasadena. And she, you know, I was telling her the story and she said, "Oh, well, you're a bridge." I said, "Yeah, Bridges is the name of the organization." She said, "No, a bridge." She said, "In Spanish, what's the word for bridge in Spanish? It's escaping me right now. But when you're an immigrant to the United States from Mexico, at 16, you're called a bridge because you know enough about your home culture that you can help anybody. You can go to Mexico and function almost like an adult. But because you're 16 when you come to America, your brain is young enough that you absorb American culture and you end up to be fluent in English and fluent in American culture. And anytime, like if you had a grandmother that comes to America, you're the one who goes to the water and power office to pay the bill with your grandmother because your grandmother can't speak English, right? And you're like the 16-year-old, but within a year to 2 years, you're like helping your grandmother deal with America. You're the bridge, right?
Mm.
And I didn't know it, but moving to South Carolina from New Jersey was such a different culture that I became a bicultural person.
Wow.
That I can help any of you want to go to South Carolina. I got you. Just give me a call. We'll go together. We'll go together and we can talk to people in the country. Or if you wanted to go to the city and talk to people in the city who don't have such quite the twang, I can talk to people in the city, no problem. Because, you know, in the South, it doesn't matter how you sound. You can be very educated. This accent has nothing to do with the quality of the education in the South. With the Fuller Seminary. Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina. And that's where our scholars come from in South Carolina. Thank you.
That's amazing. We should just have that as a highlight right there. Well, I would love to elaborate more on that and how the importance of getting out of your own comfort zone, getting out of what you know, and really stepping out. I mean, that's essentially, I love to go back to what is said in the Bible and just the life of Jesus and how he didn't stay just in the temple, but he stepped out. And that is what I love about Bridges, and that's what really drawn me to Bridges, because my life has really been that. Like, I same with you. I never really like had one group that I was in throughout high school. You know, I was able to relate to a lot of people, and so I saw a great beauty in that because you know, it allowed me to enter a part of their life and get to know their background and why people do the way they do and you know, how they get around and everything. And so I saw that Jesus also did that. You know, he didn't hang out with the holiest of holies. And in order to find the need within a community, something that is needed to be solved or healed or delivered from. He had to be amongst them. So
Mm.
what is that like as a director from a director of Bridges? What is that like, and what comes with that?
Well, yeah, I've been doing a series on the Gospel of John with Jesus and seeing what are Jesus's skills? What would he put on his resume if he had to go look for a job today? Right.
Yeah.
And one of them is Jesus at the wedding of Cana in John chapter 2, right? So picture it. Jesus is God with us. He's here with us, and he can do something good for us. And his first sign in the Gospel of John is making a whole lot of wine. Now, that's
Yeah.
I mean, like, of all the things God could do, he starts with that one. Now, there's a big deal with, that fulfills some Old Testament imagery. Okay. So there's more going on there. But think about it. What Jesus's mom says, we're out of wine. And he's like, woman, it's not my time. And his mom is like, I don't care. The people need wine, right? Like, this is this is a social emergency.
Yeah.
We're out of wine. It's a big wedding. There's lots of people here. The kid, come on. I've seen you do this before. Come on, let's do this. And the, so the God of the universe isn't saying, this isn't the most important thing. This isn't what you really need. The God of the universe is listening to his mom and people and saying, they need wine. I'm just going to start there. Let's make wine. So it Bridges, what I'm doing all the time is helping leaders listen. Jesus listened and met the needs of the people in front of him. He didn't argue with them and say, you don't really need that. That's not important, right? No, what you really need is, missionaries have had this problem all around the world. If you go in and tell people what they need, you're not starting off on the right foot. If you want to build a good relationship, listen to what people say they need and believe them. And cooperate with them. Don't say you know better. Spend 2 years listening and getting into their shoes. And after 3 years, you can whisper into one of the inside leaders' ear and say, could it possibly be that we might need this? And if that leader likes your idea, he can make it his own. But Jesus, how Jesus would always go, like, the guy at the pool of Bethesda, 38 years he's been there at the pool. And Jesus goes, would you like to be healed? You see what I mean? He never assumed, like, he doesn't say, well, this is what no, like, and so I help bridge leaders all across the country. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. Who have you talked to about that? Who have you, did you go out there, yeah, I've got this idea. I'm going to go to Tijuana and do this. Have you been to Tijuana? Who have you talked to? I talked to a woman yesterday who's they're planning to build an orphanage down in Mexico. And she said, yeah, but the government held us up. And now it's sounding like they might need a childcare facility instead of an orphanage. I said, great. You got to go listen. And I affirmed her, change your plan. Don't, so that's how, as I talk to bridge leaders around the country, we're just trying to build the skills that we see Jesus doing in the Gospel of John. And I've got a series right now on my Facebook page where we're putting up another skill that Jesus used. Like every couple of days, you'll see a little post.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait to see that. Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, when you develop a relationship with God, you really learn that we are in the image of God, and so we are already built in with all of these great characteristics and values and giftings. But, with us going through the human experience, that's where we discover all of that. And that's why it's really needed for people who have gone through the journey like you, and how impactful your service is to other people, because you're able to affirm them that, this is what God has given you and it's time to activate it, right? I'd love to talk more about I've been reading a lot about in Acts, just what Apostle Paul had gone through with Barnabas, and how they had such a fire to share the good news, how they had such a fire to share what they had experienced, and they really got out of their comfort zone. But of course, with following Christ and following the purposes that he has for us, the plans that he has for us, it doesn't come easy. He doesn't. Everyone is not exempted from the trials of this world. So if you could dig a little bit deeper in kind of your experiences, because
Wow.
Bridges has grown significantly over the years, and I'm just experiencing it now, but I'm a witness to it. So can you share more about the struggles that you were going through, any persecutions, anything related to that?
Sure. Well, first, we talked some about being in two cultures, and I wanted to reach back into that discussion, encourage our listeners that if they have a chance to move into a new culture, to go for it. Like, especially if it's related to their passion, like if they have a passion for kids and they can go somewhere where they can be with kids, or, it's tempting to stay in the culture you're used to. But if you can get out for a summer, if you can get out for 1 year, for 2 years, and go live in a different culture, you don't have to go overseas, in the United States, just relocate and figure out a new context and a new situation. It's so life-giving and so growing. I mean, it's so we get to the painful part, right? It's not always easy. But when you step out, when you go out, like, when the Holy Spirit says go, and you go, you can expect suffering. Paul had it, Jesus had it. The Bible promises it. You will be persecuted. If you are going where God wants you to go, and you are seeing the Holy Spirit do things, people's lives are being changed. People are giving their allegiance to Jesus. People who had, they were depressed, they were suicidal, and now they're not. They were having terrible dreams and nightmares, and now they're not. They were, there's just so many things I've seen. And if God's using you, there's going to be problems. And they're not always in the ministry. A lot of the problems that I faced in my life were personal problems. They were, my wife and I went to have babies, and it was more difficult than we thought. And, our first child died on her due date in the womb. And it's not like that's not normal. I mean, like, childbirth is a lot more dangerous than we act like it is in America. If you're getting married and you're having your first child, please, talk to your doctor, read a book about it, because there's a lot of miscarriages, and people in America don't talk about it. And it can be heartbreaking. And losing a child, we had 6 pregnancies, and we had 3 live babies. And so it's just heartbreaking. And to have one die on her due date, you just can't imagine what it takes to get through that grief, and accepting grief as a normal part of the human journey. That you're not being singled out for some kind of persecution. This is just part of the life. And we have to learn how to grieve. Like, the longer we live, the more we have to grieve. Whether we get to the age where we lose our parents, we lose a friend in a tragic accident. We just, grief, your first time you hit grief, if you're young and you've never hit grief, don't be shy. You hit grief for the first time, it's more excruciatingly painful than you expected. Get some help. Reach out. Go talk to your pastor, talk to a counselor, talk to your friends. Whatever you do, don't wall up in a hole in your room and get depressed and don't go out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out, get some help. It's normal. You know, it's just a normal part of life. But so
Yeah.
I would say a lot of the challenges I've had have been in my personal life instead of the ministry. But there's things in
Mm-hmm.
ministry that happen too, things that are unreasonable. And you know, I've had to learn that every human being that I trust is going to fail me at some point. All my friends from college, all my family members, the longer I live, I'm going to think we're this good of friends, you know, that if we're this good of friends, they would give me a place to live for 2 weeks, or they'd loan me $1,000, or they have some room in their place to store my goods for a couple of weeks, or, you know, whatever it is, somehow I get disappointed. My expectations were too high. And I've learned I have to just accept the love and encouragement that my friends are able to give. And when they disappoint me, I just have to realize that I need to trust God, that it was my expectations were too. It's not that they, you know, everybody has their limitations of what they can do, how they can do it, what their own issues are. I have to trust God to provide my needs. And when someone says they can't help me, and I thought they would, I just have to rearrange my expectations and keep that friend.
Mm-hmm.
Keep that friend. Don't get angry and walk away. You need that friend. If you get angry and walk away, by the time you get to be 70 years old, you won't have any friends left. Just trust God, walk away and keep that friend, because that's a real friend, even though they can't help you today. You know, we just all have limitations. Just keep that friend.
I love it. I love all your responses because, you know, and anytime that I have like a CEO or, you know, an owner of a business, they don't speak much about how personal or your ministry is basically your personal life too. You know, everything has a purpose. There's a meaning to everything. You know, in Ecclesiastes it says everything is meaningless, but God is the one who puts meaning into it. And so I love how you're speaking of your personal life and how everything is intertwined. You know, you don't compartmentalize things, and that I think that's what makes great purposeful work. You know, if we were to compartmentalize everything, there's always going to be something that is lacking, something that is not as strong as the other thing. And so I love that. And that's what we really focus here on my podcast is purposeful work. And I love how you are reflective, because I know how, I'm sure you're super busy, but it's so important. I can ask about that, and how have you been able to remain purposeful, intentional, despite the busyness that you have to do, because you have so much to do every single day.
Well, I want to encourage everybody out there. You do not have to be ordained. You don't have to be a pastor, nothing. You have ministry every day, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, whoever you know. You don't have to change a thing. You are in ministry. And the only thing you need to do to activate that ministry is in the morning when your feet touch the ground, you just ask God, show me my opportunities today. Show me what I'm supposed to do today. Because, you know, Pauline, you're a teacher, right? That's God's work. Being a teacher is God's work. You're impacting little human beings. Your love, take the love of God that comes into you and you share it with those little human beings. You never say a word about Jesus. You never say anything about anything. Just care about them. Just hug them. That's, you're doing good in the world. You know, it doesn't take some special anything, you know? You just when you know, you're at the grocery store, and, you know, I was at Target last night and it's closing. It was 11 o'clock at night. I was grabbing some stuff for my daughter. She's 23 years old. She has Down syndrome. I made a new room for her at my house and I had to buy some stuff. And it's it's Target's closing. And the employees, they're probably in their 20s. They start acting like they're off duty, right? They're like, woohoo, it's closing. We're closed. And they're like, I'm 56. I'm like, that's not the way to be. You should be professional. You should act like you're at work until the last customer leaves and give every customer the same experience. In my opinion, they're failing a character test there. Okay. But how am I going to respond? Okay. They're acting like, I think, immature. I think they need to grow up and learn how to be at work. But what do I need to do? Right? What I need to do is be as positive as I possibly can. Right?
Right.
In my head, I got this little negative thing going on. I go like, hey, I know you guys have had a long day. Thank you so much for all the work you did today. And I appreciate it. I'm here buying stuff for my daughter. I really appreciate you being here because this is really important for my family. I appreciate it. And it's just that. See what I mean? It's just like giving them that affirmation.
Right.
Instead of giving them a lecture. What do they really need? They don't need a lecture. Right? They need affirmation. They worked hard all day. So just that's your opportunity. That's the moment you can choose to be in ministry or just choose to be a human being on this earth like everybody else. You just idiot 20-year-olds. Right? It's but if you say, God, these are your children. What do you want me to say to them as they finish the night? It's right there.
That's so good.
There's so many. There's 1,000 of those every day, right?
So many opportunities. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that response. I love that.
But I want to offer a word of caution here.
Sure.
When I was, I have a friend, George, who's an atheist. He's Jewish, and we eat lunch together every week. Okay, on Wednesday at Your R2 in Glendale. Go there if you haven't. It's great. So George really cares about the homeless, and it kills him to walk by someone who's homeless and not do something for him, right? And he's like, how in the world? I was in Ethiopia. You know how many beggars are in Ethiopia? Oh my, I mean, I walk down the street, get from here to there, there's 50 beggars on every block. Oh, George is like, how could you live there? Because his heart just aches for them, And I just told you there's 1,000 opportunities every day. One of the secrets to living a sustainable life is to know it's not your job to help everybody. Like, I wait for God to kind of tap me on the shoulder and say, this one. Jesus had 12 disciples. Jesus didn't try to equally care for everyone in the world. He had 12 men that he spent more time with. So I encourage all leaders to structure their lives, not so that they're out trying to help everybody they meet, but that as they go about just being a blessing to everybody they meet, you've got to let God tell you who to invest in. You can't invest in everyone. Don't try just to go around being available to everybody. Stop. Don't do it. You'll die. Right now, there are about 6 people in my life that God has said, help that one. And so I have 6 people that I particularly try to help connect with God and develop as a human being. And they help me too, right? It's not just me helping them, they help me.
Right.
Yeah. George, the atheist Jew, helps me. He bought the chairs. He bought the chairs in the office of Bridges. He made custom software for Bridges so that we could move data from our one database to our accounting software. I mean, the guy's a genius, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and he blesses me all the time.
I love
So
that. Well, can we
yeah,
talk about that? Because I know you talked about this before about the terms that you use, like the churched and the unchurched. Can you elaborate more about that? Because I don't want, because of course I have a range of people from different backgrounds and beliefs on this podcast, and so
yeah, yeah.
I love the way that you explain it. If you could elaborate more on that.
Sure. Well, I think there's a culture to churches. Churches have a church Christianese or churchese or any religion, I think, has like this language, even though we're all speaking English, there's this language they use, and people who go to these institutions, they get used to this culture of the institution. And I think we need to recognize that that culture is very different than someone that doesn't participate in that. And I think the people that go to these institutions forget that their culture is not the same as someone who's not going to that institution. And they start trying to have a conversation, and it's totally confusing because they use all these churchy words that no one understands. And the other person is like really uncomfortable. And, it just doesn't work. And so, I've grown up in church. We used to go to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. We went to church anytime it was necessary or possible. and I know every churchy word in the book. And I also have been outside the church with my friend George and my friend Larry, and I know how it sounds. And, people in the church often want people to come to church. And I'm kind of an advocate of, it's not their culture. If they don't feel comfortable there, you shouldn't be trying to get them to go there. They have an experience. They have their own spiritual journey. They have their own spiritual language. And so I try to train people to listen and to respect people of all kinds of journeys, whether it's in an institution or outside of an institution, in a church, outside of a church, to listen to their experience, their language, and enter into that world, that language game with them, and see what happens. To me, that's a lot more fun. I learn more. And, I think God is already there. See, I don't think you have to go to church to find God. I think God is everywhere. So sometimes it's really fun to enter into somebody else's world and go, wow. I'll tell you a story. This will blow your mind a little bit. So there's, being vulnerable. My wife left me a year ago, right? So here I am, single, and I was married for 30 years, and now I have to date. And I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I feel like I'm 20 again. Could some of you 20-year-olds help me out? Give me a call. I need some help. But what's fascinating is I'll go on a date, and one of the questions I'll ask is, have you ever experienced God, the universe, your higher power, whatever it is you call it, communicating with you? Like, a lot of people pray and talk to God, but has God ever talked back? And I get the most amazing stories from people, in the church, outside, it doesn't matter. Amazing stories. This one woman said to me, yeah, I was driving my car and I got this vision of like being in an accident. And it was me, and it was my car, and it was this thing, and it was this accident. And she said, like 5 minutes later, it happened. I was in the car, and it was exactly what I saw. And I was in this accident, and I couldn't believe it. And I think it was like, something was communicating with me. And I said, wow, that's amazing. That could have been like God telling you something about what was going to happen. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Right? It's not me. It's what does she think? But, inside, Paulie, when you're in the religious institution, this story has repeated itself thousands of times through the ages, right? So when you're in the place where we're used, she had never had anybody else tell that kind of story. Whereas when you're in the institution where those stories are collected, you've heard them 1,000 times. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, you know, in the institution where we collect these stories, when you get that vision, generally we pull to the side of the road and stop the car before the accident. But she was so fresh. She was so, you know, innocent, so not in the institution, so just having an experience. She didn't even think to pull to the side of the road. And that's amazing. You know, that's like, it's such a privilege to hear her story and to ask questions and have her think about it some more. You know, the next time she gets some vision like that, she might pull to the side of the road. You know, I don't know, but I certainly would. The second time, I think I'd but people have amazing stories, and they use their own words to tell them, and you just listen and affirm and say, that's amazing, and wow, you know, what did you learn? What did that mean to you? How did that change your life? You know, how does that impact you today? You know, those are the, you know, a lot of time people in the institution, people in the church think they have the story to tell. I think we need to flip and let the people outside the institution tell some stories.
Absolutely.
It's a blast. I have so much fun listening to those stories.
So do I. That's why those questions are so important, you know?
Yeah.
And these are things that we...
But you asked me to... No, you asked me to clarify churched and unchurched. Does that... I said a lot. Did I clarify? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Want to make sure I answer the question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I've connected with Bridges, it gave me a little bit more confidence to talk about my faith. But not even just that. Like I always tell, you know, I come as authentic as I can, you know, and I'm not here to force anything upon anyone. What I've always been doing, even since before I was more open about my faith, is just always ask questions.
Yeah.
So that's what gets us, you know, stirred up and thinking about life intentionally. And one of the biggest questions I've had for a group of my friends, I always ask my friends kind of the common theme of what's happening in the world. And it's sad that sometimes it has to take a world crisis for us to think about our life, you know, when it should be every single day. And so, that's why we call this podcast Pause, Sip, and Ponder, because it's about those real good questions that bring us back to what really matters in life. But I know you can go on and on and on, and actually I want you to save it because you guys should check out his stuff personally outside of this podcast, because he has loads of wisdom to give you guys and a lot of resources. And I think you guys should definitely check out Bridges. But as we circle back and close out soon, I want to ask you, Jim, do you think Bridges, let me rephrase it. Did you think that Bridges would be where it is today?
Oh, I thought Bridges would be much farther ahead. Like, I thought we were going to scale in 3 years. Like, I thought we were going to have 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 bridge leaders. It then, you know, now it's year 11. And Betsy, one of our bridge leaders, came to me, you know, about 3 months ago and said, well, you know, the average time to scale a business is 14 years. And I was like, oh, it's a lot harder than I thought. It's a lot harder. It's a lot harder than you think. So, I mean, Bridges has come a long way, but, you know, the dream is much bigger. But what I believe is that, you know, just like Amazon transformed the commercial space, you know, the Sears, you know, that whole model of business, you know, the church has to go through a similar change in business model. Nonprofits in general have to go through a similar change in business model just because the world economy is changing. So I don't think it's not like Bridges is going to change the nonprofit landscape in America. That's what we intend to do. But I think it's going to change no matter what. Whether it's Bridges or there's 20 more organizations popping up around the country, this is just how it's going to be. You know, it's like these trends build up over decades and hundreds of years, and the internet started in motion a series of changes that you can't really stop. So, you know, if you want to do nonprofit the old way, you can, but it's pretty expensive and takes a lot of effort, and it just seems kind of silly when you know, can kind of do it on the internet now, and you know, sign a document, and you don't have to form your own board, and you don't have to set up your own website giving page, and you don't have to talk to the IRS, and you know, it's like if you want to do all that, all right, have fun, you know. But I you know, I'm hoping we see not just Bridges, but other organizations, and we just see a multiplication of people in their passion, doing good, you know, making our communities better places. You know, Amazon kind of messed it up, right? They made it possible to start your own business, but now it seems like the profit motive is taking over, and you know, it's like they're taking too much. They're sitting in the middle of people who want to do business and customers and making huge amounts of money and not really letting the business owner make enough. You know, what I hope we can do in the nonprofit sector is make it so, you know, John G, who I talked to this past week, who's retired and has been volunteering and helping little kids, he's realized that if he could just raise a little bit more money, he could help so many more kids. And he realized Bridges can help him do that. You know, he's just one guy, but he has all these relationships that nobody else has with, you know, a local school that has a wood shop that sits empty because no one's doing anything for the kids. And, you know, if he could have a little money to buy wood, he could do it. And he's got the time. And so, you know, we're like multiplying that out 100 times, right? I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And Bridges would love to be a part of it. And, you know, we'd love if, you know, if any of your listeners want to be a part of it, we'd love to have them, you know, contact me, give me a call, email, Facebook, whatever, Instagram, TikTok. I'm on TikTok. So having some fun there.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love how you said that, you know, just having that one friend that you've kept in contact with and have developed a relationship. And again, with the affirming thing, I think I've been doing the same thing throughout the communities in my life, you know, just affirming one person, and automatically they're already making a blueprint of what they want to do next, you know. And so it really takes a matter of making us available to the people who need it, you know, and that requires our time, that requires our energy. But you know, if it's something that you're really driven and something you really love, you know, I don't think it's at all. And so even when you talk about, you wish and pray that Bridges could be, you know, somewhere else than now, it's all about scaling. You know, what is your scale? What is your perspective on it? And I think the Lord just always reminds us to be present and to think about his goodness and what he's done already, so that we're more excited and you know, and hopeful for what's next. So thank you so much, Jim. I could listen to your advice and your wisdom and your experiences all day, and I'm so honored to have had the opportunity to connect with Bridges and to have Bridges be a big part of what Positive and Ponder is doing right now. I never thought I would be where I'm at right now with Positive and Ponder. It's only been a few months, and it's become crazy. Like when you said, like, it's God moves in mysterious ways. Like you can't, it's too much where it's like you have to let go, because you know, it just comes rapidly. If you really desire something, he will fulfill that desire in any way that he wants. And so and I'm sure a lot of bridge leaders have been experiencing the same thing. But from, I can see what your hard work and your consistency, faith without action is dead. So I want to say also thank you, and I want to speak, I hopefully can speak for other bridge leaders. Thank you so much for your time, your dedication to this ministry. Thank you so much for empowering and affirming so many people. And I'm so excited to see what's next for Bridges, and I'm excited to be a witness of all of that. So thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to say?
There is something else I want to say, because you were just saying how, it's mysterious. And just yesterday, I heard this story at an event I was at, and there was this guy who went, and this is for all the 20-year-olds out there, 22, 23, 24, 25, whatever, 30, whatever, okay? Because a lot of time, what we want in life is clarity. We want it, if we could just get clarity that this is what I'm supposed to do, and this is what I need to do today in order to get to where I'm supposed to go. And if we could get that strategy in place and just start today, and then we're going to get where we're going to go, and it's all going to be good, right? So this guy, this story is the guy, had a lot of unclarity in his life, and a lot of confusion, ambiguity. So he went to Calcutta, saw Mother Teresa, and he got right in front of Mother Teresa and was, down on the floor scrubbing with her. And he said, "Mother Teresa, I'd like you to pray for me." And she said, "Sure. And I'd be happy to pray for you, my son." And he says, "Could you pray for clarity? My life is so confusing." Mother Teresa started laughing. And he's like, "Why are you laughing? I'm asking you to pray for me." She said, "I've always wanted clarity, but God's never given it to me. But he's given me the ability to trust."
Wow. That's good.
So that it's like, my experience, like with Bridges and everything else, is I had plans for this, that, and the other. And God provides and God does things. But, I talk back to God and I go, "God, I'm so glad you provided this $10,000 today at 4:00. But, God, I needed it at 4:00. And God says, "Yeah." And I said, "God, could you just do that like 2 weeks earlier? Like, that would help my heart condition, like, stop it." Like, there's like, everything's like just working out in time, and you're like, "Really? Can you just, do I really have that much trust? Do I have to and God's like, "Hey, I'm God."
Right, exactly.
I don't, like, it's up to me. And I'm like, "Oh man, I'd like so much more clarity. Oh, would I like clarity? I'm good." I still tell God every day, "God, more clarity, more clarity, more clarity." So, take a little less mystery, God, and a little bit more direction. So, so I'm with all of you out there that want more clarity, and I'm talking to God about it. And if I make any progress, I'll let you know. All right?
Yeah.
I'm with you.
I mean, yeah, but then it comes to perspective. Like, he could have just gave it to us easily, and what would that say about our work? You know what I mean? So,
right.
wow.
Well, it builds my faith. Yeah. It builds my faith, right? It comes in at the last second. You go, "Again?"
Yeah, I know.
So, it's pretty, you can say it's pretty cool, but, you really, clarity is hard. But if we trust and keep putting one foot in front of the other, it seems like things work out. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Pauline,
well,
you're wonderful. Pauline, you're wonderful. You're amazing. Thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me be on here. Thanks for letting me tell my stories. And
yes,
it's fun to watch you.
I'm so glad.
Do your ministry. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jim. Yeah, and I'm glad. Thank you for allowing me to learn more about your life. And I know that as we open up about our personal life and our testimony, that creates a stronger connection with our audience, and just to show our humanness, really. But yeah, thank you again. Thank you everyone who has listened up to this point. I hope you learned something today. I hope you got something of value. If you are someone who desires to serve a purpose bigger than yourself, you are not alone, and there's so many resources that we can turn to. And from what we've discussed today, I hope it gave you something to start that, whatever that is, whether a business or a community or organization. And of course, I will leave all the information about Bridges below, so you can get connected with them. And if you'd like to hear my personal experiences with Bridges as well, I can definitely share that. But thank you guys so much once again. If you like this episode, please subscribe, like, follow, share to someone you think who would benefit from this. Don't forget to follow us on our social medias and stay tuned for all of our future events. We're aiming for an event every month, once every month. If you're in the DMV area, we have been consistent with our monthly meetings called Reflect with Us, where at the end of the month, we are able to have group discussions and reflect over the month so we can step into the next month with intention and with purpose. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you in the next episode. Don't forget to always love, to always be curious, and to always ponder. Bye.